Welcome to industrial timber, where tractors, recovery crews, logging roads, mud pits, old-school engines, and raw machine power all get tested in the real world. If you enjoy heavy equipment under pressure, impossible pulls, deep mud recoveries, and machines pushed right to the edge, subscribe now and stay with industrial timber. Now pause and look at this homemade mini tractor. Would you really trust something this small and rough-looking to pull 3 loaded trailers with hay bales across loose gravel? It looks questionable from the first second, but somehow it keeps moving. That is rural engineering at its strangest. Simple, improvised, maybe not perfect, but still doing the job. The New Holland T7 270 recovery is a cleaner example of controlled power. The rope is clearly under serious tension, but the tractor does not just sit there waiting to be dragged. It uses its own power to help the pull, reducing shock load and keeping the recovery smoother. That is the smarter way to move heavy equipment. Less violent force, more coordination. Then the Kirovets gets into a much uglier situation. It can only move sideways and cannot drive straight out. The skidder gives it enough pulling force, and the K701 almost makes it, but poor steering response kills the attempt. Now the crew has a decision to make. Change the angle, bring in stronger support, or risk burying that machine deeper into icebound mud. Then comes the kind of recovery that makes people stop and watch. Most crews would start digging or call for heavier backup, but these guys go straight for chains and logs like they have done it 100 times. That log chain trick is not fancy, but it works. In the field, that matters more than looking professional. Field knowledge is what separates experienced operators from beginners. Next, heat reminds everyone what heavy machines go through. Even after running that hot, the manifolds still hold their shape better than expected. You would expect warping or deformation fast, but farm and forestry equipment is often built tougher than people give it credit for. These machines are designed to survive punishment, not just look good in a brochure. A stuck tractor is never just a stuck tractor. In deep mud, the driver has choices. Rock it carefully, shift properly, use a winch, or admit it is time to call for help. The wrong choice can turn a recovery into a repair bill. More throttle does not always mean more progress. Sometimes it only digs the machine deeper. Then a small DT proves size is not everything. Next to the Komatsu, it almost looks like a toy, but once it starts pulling, you understand why these old machines still earn respect. Simple, tough, and surprisingly capable. Industrial timber is full of machines like this. Not flashy, not modern, but still willing to work. Forget normal tractor pulls. This one brings the Case IH 550 quad-track against the New Holland T9 615 with triples. That is not just a contest. That is a full traction battle. Track grip versus tire spread, torque versus surface pressure. Machine against machine. The ground takes the punishment while the crowd waits to see which setup wins. Getting out of a mud pit like this is a real test. Even strong John Deere machines cannot always beat the ground. So the question is fair. Was the machine outmatched, or was the operator asking too much from it? In mud, pride gets expensive fast. The ground does not care what badge is on the hood. In field work, problems are guaranteed. Here, a John Deere 9000 470R hauling a 90-foot planter gets stuck, and the recovery shows what actually solves the problem: teamwork, patience, and enough equipment to handle the load properly. Big machines need big planning. Without that, every recovery turns into a gamble. And honestly, that recovery was wild. It looked like there was no way out, but somehow they worked it through. That is the kind of moment where power matters, but patience and timing matter more. A strong machine can pull hard, but a smart operator knows when to pull, when to stop, and when to change the angle. Then comes the balancing act. That giant counterweight helps, sure, but balance is not only about hardware. It is about knowing exactly how the machine reacts under load and making tiny corrections before the whole thing gets away from you. Heavy equipment moves slowly until it does not. That is why control matters every second. Now this is a proper winch lesson. Dragging heavy logs by brute force across flat ground is already rough, but on a slope, it becomes inefficient and risky. A winch gives control, reduces stress on the machine, and keeps the load moving in a smarter line. This is not just recovery. This is how professionals work when the terrain is fighting back. That is the real lesson here. Power means nothing if the operator does not know how to use it. Anyone can get stuck. Getting out cleanly, under control, in bad conditions, takes experience. That is the difference between a machine surviving the day and a machine needing expensive repairs. Too many tractors get damaged because drivers think more throttle means more traction. That is a rookie mistake. The Belarus MTZ 3522 is a strong machine, but no tractor is invincible when mud removes grip from the equation. Once the tires spin freely, all that power turns into noise, smoke, and deeper ruts. Right away, you can see momentum is everything. He is almost faster backing up than moving forward, but in ground like this, hesitation is the enemy. When mud starts grabbing the tires, you need just enough speed to keep the machine floating forward, not so much that you bury it deeper. The speed is low, and the tread struggles to bite, but the operator still pulls it off. A little slower, and it might have looked textbook, but keeping control on that slick surface still deserves respect. It is not pretty, but it works. And in field work, that is usually enough. Then one tractor looks like it decided to cool off in the water. Funny at first glance, but once a machine settles into mud or water like that, the recovery becomes serious fast. Water adds suction, mud adds drag, and suddenly a simple mistake becomes a full operation. Sometimes it is not about how modern or polished a machine looks. It is about what it can actually do when conditions get ugly. The LKT-81 hauling logs through snow proves that perfectly. No flashy design, no fancy electronics, just practical pulling power where it counts. And then comes the reminder nobody should ignore. Always secure heavy pulls with properly rated chains or cables. A bad connection does not fail quietly. It can turn into a dangerous incident instantly. One snapped chain or weak toe point can change the whole job in a second. Next, the New Holland 110 to 90 steps into the mud pit challenge. It has the reputation, it has the build, and now it has to prove whether it can actually handle the kind of terrain people claim it was made for. Tough talk means nothing until the tires start fighting real mud. Then the madness level goes up, a tank against a John Deere 8345 RT. The Deere has grip, the tank has mass. The soil between them takes the punishment. You can almost feel the ground tightening under that pull. This is not clean work. This is raw force testing the limits of traction. Then the Kubota 6001 gets into serious mud. Smaller machines either prove themselves here or stall out immediately. This one keeps its momentum, and that comes down to torque management, not blind throttle. Small does not always mean weak when the operator knows what the machine needs. The MTZ-82 is buried deep and spinning hard. At this point, more throttle will not fix the problem. The smarter move is clear. Stop digging deeper and bring in proper backup before the tractor becomes part of the field. Knowing when to stop is part of being a good operator. A wrong trolley setup can ruin traction too. If there is not enough pressure on the rear tires, the tractor slips more easily. Weight distribution is not a small detail. It decides whether power reaches the ground or disappears into wheel spin. That next move is not luck. That is skill built over years of mistakes, recoveries, and long days behind the wheel. Operators do not learn that kind of control from a manual. They learn it by fighting bad ground, bad loads. The Zader 7745 pulls logs like a beast. The front wheels lift, but the job keeps moving. It may be a bit light for the hardest loads, and a 6-cylinder version would have been wild, but it still gets the work done. That is the mark of a useful machine. Imperfect, but dependable. When a machine this size sinks into mud, most people panic. This operator does not. Every movement is measured, every correction is careful, and that tells you there are years of experience behind the controls. In industrial timber, the ground may be brutal, but the best operators stay calm, read the machine, and fight their way out one move at a time.